Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's Chickens here, back again with the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity video. And today we'll finish revisiting the original 3 characters, and the last one we have left to do is the Princess of Hyrule herself, Zelda. Zelda, like Link, will have her moveset change depending on the weapon she uses, and she has 2 weapons she can use, which are the Sheikah Slate and then the Bow of Light or slash Sealing Bow. The Sheikah Slate's the weapon you start off with, and then later on in the game, I think during chapter 6 or 5, you unlock her Sealing Power and get access to the Bow of Light slash Sealing Bow. And then, like always, I'll separate these 2 different movesets into different sections like I did in the Link video, and I'll leave timestamps in the description so you guys can easily navigate to each section. We will start with their Sheikah Slate moveset first, but before you do, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also make sure to give the video a like if you watched it and enjoyed it, as this is kind of a lot of work to put together. Also, for those of you who are interested, I'm planning on covering the future champions next week, and if you have any preference on which ones I do first, please make sure to check out the poll on my community tab on my channel. I'll be using that poll to help me decide the order in which those videos come out, so if you really want to see a specific future champion first, make sure to go vote. But other than that, let's just get this video started. So like I said, we'll be starting with the Sheikah Slate first, so here is the attack menu showing all of her attack combos and abilities. And as you can see here, she really doesn't have that many attack combos or abilities, but we'll go into each one of these in detail and show exactly what they all do. And we'll start as usual by taking a look at her basic abilities first. First up, we have our dash attack, which is used by sprinting and pressing X. This will make Zelda create 4 small Cryonis blocks around her while she's running. And then you can detonate these later using her unique action, which will do some extra damage to nearby enemies. So like I already kind of mentioned earlier, Zelda's unique action when she's using the Sheikah Slate will activate all placed Sheikah Runes on the field. Whenever these runes are activated, they tend to do splash damage to any enemies near the runes, and they can also be activated from pretty far away and can be used while midair. Overall though, this unique action is very simple and not too exciting. Here are some of Zelda's weak point smash animations. Her weak point smash has no other effects besides the damage it usually does. And finally, we have our special attack where Zelda will pull out a camera and take a picture of the enemies in front of her. All the enemies in the picture that have a circle around her head will all be dealt damage. Now it's time to go over her Sheikah Runes. Zelda's Sheikah Runes are the most powerful in the game as they do the most damage as well as recharge way quicker. So this makes them pretty viable as just attacks by themselves. And you can also enhance her ability later to make her Sheikah Runes even more powerful than they already are. First we have Zelda's Cryonis, which will allow her to drop Cryonis icicles from the sky onto the enemies below. I believe you're allowed to use this ability for around 6 to 7 seconds, and you can send out as many icicles as you want. And once they hit the ground, you can also activate them as ZR to do some splash damage to nearby enemies. Next up we have her Bomb Rune, in which she will spawn a bomb robot that will drop bombs below it as it moves and then also shoot out bombs around it. You can control where it moves with the left stick, and you can also quit controlling it with B at any time. If you quit controlling it, it will continue to move in whatever direction it was facing and dispense bomb like normal. And you can also choose to activate the bomb at any time and blow it up, and I believe if your Sheikah Runes are enhanced, the bomb robot will create a small tornado around it to release a huge explosion. For our Magnesis, Zelda will pull out some metal weapons from the ground and form them into a ball. You can then walk wherever you want with this ball, but it will only do damage to enemies whenever you press ZR to activate it. And after you activate it, she'll send it flying forward and damage all enemies within a pretty wide area. And finally, for her stasis, Zelda will freeze all enemies in a very large area around her. You can then attack these frozen enemies like normal, or you could choose to activate the stasis with ZR, which will unfreeze all enemies and deal a pretty good chunk of damage to them. So before we get into our attack combos, I'll quickly let you guys know that all of our regular and strong attacks incorporate the Sheikah Runes in some way. Each of these attacks actually register as a normal Sheikah Rune even though they've been created through an attack. So say for example, if one of her combos she spawns a Cryonis block and then an enemy charges her with a Cryonis symbol above their head, if they hit the Cryonis block spawned by her regular attack, they'll get stunned like they usually do. Alright, so kicking this off, our first combo is a 3 Wise combo where Zelda will pull a metal box from the ground, create a Cryonis block in front of her, and then stasis and unstasis the enemies right in front of her as well. Combo 2 is our XXX combo. For all 3 of these, Zelda will use the Cryonis rune. First she'll spawn 4 small Cryonis blocks in front of her, then create stairs made out of Cryonis blocks that she'll jump up on, and then when she reaches the top of these stairs, she'll drop a Cryonis block directly in front of her. Also, once you reach the top of those Cryonis stairs on the second attack, you either jump off of it and paraglide or use your mid-air combos afterwards. Combo 3 is the Y and 3 X's combo, which all use the Magnesis rune. First, Zelda will pull a metal block out of the ground, then she'll swing it from side to side and then slam it back into the ground. Then on the final attack, she'll pull a minecart from the ground and ride it around in a similar fashion to Link's Shield Surf and Daruk's Goron Roll. If you get a hit while she's riding the minecart, she'll get knocked off of it and you'll have to redo the whole combo if you want to use it again. And also one thing, after she's done using the minecart, she pretty much always falls off, so it kind of takes her a second to get back up. And our last combo for the Sheikah Slate Zelda is 2 Ys and 3 X's. For the 2 Y presses, Zelda will do her normal attacks like in combo 1. Then for the first X, she'll create a huge bomb and roll it forwards. The second X, she'll throw a series of bombs in front of her. And then on the last X press, she'll throw a medium-sized bomb in front of her, which will detonate and blow up the big bomb from earlier, creating a massive explosion. Now it's time for some tips when using the Sheikah Slate, and as always I'll first start by going over my plan for the weapon build. My plan for her is to add 1 attack range and 3 attack speeds. A lot of her attack combos are AoE attacks, so I want the range buff to be there just to get a little extra range on those attacks. And then the attack speeds are there like usual just so she can get off her attacks a little faster than normal. However, the bad thing about her Sheikah Slate is that the hidden seals are terrible for combat. The first one is the ability to detect nearby Koroks, which is pretty useless, and the second one is damage increase to locked on targets, which you barely use at all. Now for my combat tips, I only have one because Zelda's moveset is pretty lacking with her Sheikah Slate, but my only one is to use her Sheikah Runes as much as possible. They're actually really solid attacks on their own, unlike the other characters, and they recharge very fast, so you just try to use them as often as you can. I recommend to mainly use her Bomb Rune and Stasis Rune to do the most damage and better suited for combat. Her Magnesis is pretty underwhelming and Cryonis is a little mediocre too, so I mainly try to use the other two. For combo usage, I think that combo 4 is good for crowd control, and then combo 3 is better suited for taking on bosses. And then combo 2 is pretty good at doing both of those as well. As you can probably tell from her lack of basic abilities and attack combos, Sheikah Slate Zelda isn't the best for combat. Her Sheikah Runes and their effects do make up a little bit for that, but overall Sheikah Slate Zelda is a very underwhelming character. However, I do think she is solid at crowd control, but nothing much outside of that. And I do still find her fun to play as her attack combos are pretty unique and different from all the other characters. But I didn't really use her a lot once I unlocked all the other champions, but if Zelda is your favorite character and you really want to main her, just go for it. She is still pretty viable for playing through the main story, although you may run into some problems if you do play on the harder difficulties. But thankfully, her lack of attacks and her weakness in combat changes a lot when she awakens her ceiling power and gets the Bow of Light instead. Alright, now it's time to talk about the Bow of Light, which is the way better moveset in my opinion. So here's the attack menu showing all of her abilities and attack combos, and as you can see here, she has different forms she can switch between. So I'll go over how exactly that works as well as all the other attack combos. And as always, we'll first start off with the basic abilities. So first off, we'll start off with the dash attack, which you use by sprinting and pressing X. When you do this, Zelda will throw out a ball of light in front of her while she's running that will later explode and apply rings to nearby enemies. Next, we'll talk about her unique action, which switches Zelda between her normal and luminescent forms. Her luminescent form will cause her to float above the ground and will drain her special attack gauge while it's active. While she's in this mode, her movement's hampered a little bit as she's unable to sprint and turn like she normally does. But luminescent mode gives Zelda the ability to launch some unique and very powerful attacks that she only uses at the end of her combos. But instead of having to actually do those combos, all you have to do is press a couple of buttons. Also, really quickly, some of Zelda's attacks here will apply rings of light around the enemies they hit. Then any enemy surrounded by this ring will take extra damage from the arrows Zelda can shoot out of her bow of light in some of her attacks. Now moving on to some of her attacks in luminescent mode, and our first one is done by simply pressing X. This attack will send out some pillars of light out of the ground and then will suck in any enemies into a small circle and encompass them with a ball of light that will then do some damage to them. Luminescent attack 2 is done by pressing Y. This attack will make Zelda shoot out arrows of light from her bow that targets enemies in front of her and has a very big area of effect. Also, like I said earlier, if you have any enemies that are currently surrounded by a ring of light, these arrows will do some extra damage to them. Attack number 3 is done by holding ZL and pressing B. This will make Zelda create a circle of light with some symbol on the ground that will detonate either after a few seconds or the moment it touches an enemy. This attack also has a huge AoE and will apply rings of light around all the enemies damaged by it. But this attack isn't very good on its own, and its main purpose is to be used with attack number 2 and increase the damage the arrows do. Attack 4 is done by holding ZL and pressing X. This will send out a ball of light that travels a pretty good distance forward, and then after a second or two it will create a huge explosion and apply rings of light to any enemies affected. And one thing to note here that this ball of light will stop when it reaches a bigger enemy like a boss or a mini boss, and like the last attack is meant to be used in conjunction with attack number 2. Her last luminescent attack is performed by holding ZL and pressing Y. This attack will make Zelda send out a triangular beam in a straight line in front of her. All the enemies that are within this beam will have damage done to them, and this beam also travels super far. I'm not exactly sure how far it goes because it's hard to rotate the camera around when using it, but this attack has some crazy range though. Now it's time for her weak point smash animations. Her weak point smash is pretty standard, but I do notice not only does it target the boss, but also does a small amount of damage to enemies that are nearby that boss as well. And finally, wrapping this section off with their special attack. For this attack, Zelda will pull out her bow and shoot an arrow of light in front of her, and then afterwards she'll create a huge bubble of light that damages all surrounding enemies.
I will fight for Hyrule!
Interestingly enough, Zelda's Sheikah Runes change whenever she switches between her Bow of Light and Sheikah Slate, and obviously her Bow of Light Sheikah Runes are a little bit worse than the Sheikah Slate ones, but they're still really good and are better from the other characters. Also, her Sheikah Runes no longer have the increased recharge rate before like they did with the Sheikah Slate. First off, we'll start with Cryonis. When you use it, Zelda will create 4 Cryonis blocks around her and then quickly break them using her light magic. For Bomb Rune, Zelda will throw out 5 bombs in a half circle around her. Then when these bombs explode, they'll create small light balls that will do additional damage and apply rings to any affected enemies. Zelda's Magnesis is a little different than normal, as you actually have to use it twice to get its main effect. The first use will disarm enemies with metal weapons, and then the second one will absorb all of them into a ball and engulf them with light magic. Then shortly after it will explode and do damage to all the enemies nearby. And lastly for stasis, Zelda will freeze all nearby enemies and then be prompted to either press Y to charge arrows of light or press X to bombard. You can charge up to 4 times and after that it will break, or you can press X and just break it automatically. Now for some attack combos, and first up like always is the 7 Ys combo. This combo is all regular attacks, but on the second and last attack she'll apply rings of light to all enemies, and then the last attack she'll shoot out an arrow to get that extra damage in. This combo is actually pretty good in comparison to all the other characters' combo ones, as it has a pretty good AoE, especially the last couple of attacks. Combo 2 is her YX, where she does one regular attack followed by a strong attack that is identical to her first luminescent attack. And then also this combo sends you mid-air, so you actually have the ability to do some mid-air combos afterwards. Combo number 3 is the YYX combo. For this one, Zelda will do 2 regular attacks to take a step back and do an attack that is pretty much identical to her third luminescent attack. And like in that third one, this also applies rings to all enemies. Combo 4 is her 3 Ys and an X, where Zelda does 3 regular attacks that is followed by her second luminescent attack. The only difference here is they can only shoot the bow of light once instead of multiple times like when you're in luminescent mode. Next up, Combo 5, Zelda will do 4 regular attacks followed by attack 4 from her luminescent mode. And like luminescent attack number 4, the end of this attack will apply rings of light to any affected enemies. And lastly for Combo 6, Zelda would do 5 regular attacks followed by attack 5 from her luminescent mode. There is a small difference here in that instead of shooting out the triangular beams from her hand, she'll instead shoot it out using her bow. Now it's time for the second quick tips, and again I'll start off by going over my weapon build. For Bow of Light, I plan on using 1 damage per 100 KOs, 2 special attack charge rates, and 1 attack speed. The damage per 100 KOs is there to mainly give her a slight increase to her damage output, and the attack speed is there so she can get off her combos a little bit faster. And finally, the 2 special attack charges are needed so it can use her luminescent mode more frequently, as well as be able to use her more powerful special attack. And I went with these choices just so I can get the plus 20 damage increase, as well as give her a very well-rounded weapon to use. As far as combat tips go, I already mentioned this earlier, but when taking on large groups of enemies, first use attacks that apply rings to them, and then quickly follow them up with the bow of light shots. This will allow you to get through hordes of enemies way faster than usual and help maximize your damage potential. Also, don't be afraid to use your luminescent mode really frequently, as it gives you access to more powerful attacks faster. And if you have these special attack charge rates like I do, you probably don't have to worry about draining your special and not getting it back after a while, as it recharges really fast. As far as combos go, all of them are pretty good, but I feel like combos 5 and 6 are best for bosses, while 2, 3, and 4 are good for crowd control. I also think that combo 1 is actually very good and viable for both. But overall, this version of Zelda is much needed drastic improvement over the Sheikah Slate Zelda. She has way more attacks than before, and each of these attacks do more damage and have the same AoEs as the Sheikah Slate Zelda version. Her luminescent mode is also a way better unique action, as it gives her instant access to all of her powerful attacks that are usually at the end of her combos. The only downgrade though from her other moveset is that her Sheikah Runes are way less powerful. They don't charge as fast and they're a little bit weaker, but all of the upgrades to everything else in her moveset make this trade-off way worth it. And in my opinion, I think that Awakened Zelda / Ceiling Zelda is one of the better characters to play in the game and is an absolute blast to play as. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up the video for today. Those are all of the attack combos, Sheikah Runes, and abilities for both of Zelda's weapon types. Now that we're all done with the original 3 characters, next week we'll set our focus to the future champions. And like I said in the beginning, if you have any preference on which one you want me to cover first, make sure to go vote in the poll in my community tab on my channel. But other than that guys, if you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful, please make sure to leave a like. This video took a good amount of time to make, so a like would be very much appreciated. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as I'll be posting way more Age of Calamity and Zelda related content. But other than that guys, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.